On today's episode, I want to talk about the things in the US that Europeans find weird. Of course, a lot of these traits won't be weird to an American because it is all we know. And of course, it is common to look at a culture that differs from your own and think, well, that's different. So let's talk about it. Hello, Lieblings. I'm Madi, science fiction and fantasy author who's been living in southern Germany since 2014. Also, I'm really hot. It's starting to get hot where we are in Germany, and I don't have air conditioning, and I'm pregnant, and yeah. Actually, that's a lie. My husband just recently, he got us air conditioning when it was still winter, and he actually installed it yesterday. But it actually uses a lot of energy, though, we all knew that, and it's really loud. And we'll see what happens. But the big thing is trying to put it at least in our bedroom, just because to at least try to cool it down at night. Because as long as I'm able to sleep, I can deal with, being hot and sweaty during the day. But first world problems. So anyway, I thought this would be kind of a fun episode to talk about typical American things that Europeans find weird. Though when I speak of Europeans, I will mostly be aiming towards Germans, since they are the ones I come into the most contact with. As always on this channel, when looking at different cultures, this is not to say these things are inherently bad, it's simply different. There are things that can be improved upon, of course, but we're not here to say one culture bad, other good. So I've compiled a list of 11 things Europeans find weird that we Americans find normal. So let's get started. 1. Asking how are you as a greeting, not a question. This is essentially the conversation revolving around American small talk. A lot of Europeans gripe about being asked how they're doing when you're say, checking out of a store. You get to the cashier and they say, "Hey, how you doing?" And you just assume Americans don't care. And it really is it's the way we say hi. It's just part of a social ritual in the US. And it's, a long-winded way of saying hi. That's all it is. Number 2, ice cubes. We in the US are used to having a ton of ice in our drinks. I will admit there are times when it is over the top. My teeth are very sensitive and they hurt when the drink is too cold. So I've actually never been a big fan of too much ice. But also at the same time, I'll admit, then this is just comparing Germany to Indiana. Specifically, Indiana summers are stupid hot. We need our drinks to be cooler. I mean, maybe not more ice than fluid cool, but at least more than the one ice cube you would get in a restaurant in Germany. Yeah, somewhere in between. Number 3, free refills. I'm sure it was probably a surprise to many European when they came to visit the States, for their first time, ordered a drink, and before it was finished, poof, new drink appears, like magic. In Europe, you pay for each of your drinks. But in the US, we have free refills. And it's not that big of a deal, but I will say my husband's biggest complaint about free refills is when we go to diners for breakfast. He likes having coffee with milk, and so he'll always have his perfect coffee to milk ratio, and then our waiter/waitress will swoop in and then fill his cup with coffee, thus ruining the ratio. And honestly, I never even thought about it because my dad only ever drinks black coffee, so free refills was just that. However, there have been times that usually, because my dad's a very avid coffee drinker, he usually just goes ahead and asks for his own pot, so then we can just pour it ourselves. And I think for those of you wondering how to get around that, I think that may be the way to go if you want to be able to drink more than one cup of coffee. Or unfortunately, you have to be aware, and as soon as you see that waitress coming in, you have to put your hand over your cup, be like, no. And it sucks because you should be at your restaurant enjoying your meal and not having to watch the waiter or waitress out of the corner of your eye. I think it would mess with your restaurant dining experience, but Anyway, moving on. Number 4, portion sizes. Yeah, these have gotten out of control. And I remember when it was first starting out, because I'm old enough to say that it wasn't always this way in the States, but I remember seeing commercials about it being like, why pay for a medium-sized burger when you can get double the size for like $1 more? So it's like the idea was starting out as a deal, you know, like getting more for less money. And I'm like having flashbacks of seeing these kind of commercials like that. And I'm sure if I researched how this started, I could probably find out more. And maybe I could actually do an episode on that. So if you are interested, maybe I will research on that. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I never minded the portion sizes, only because taking home leftovers is common in the States. It wasn't so much when I first moved to Germany. It is more so now, and especially after with the Rona and everything, it's more commonplace. But in the States, I would always eat half of the plate and then I would take home the rest. And it was the best thing when I was a college student. When one of the parents of my roommates and my roommates and I, the house we lived in, they would come to visit us and take us, the group, out to dinner. They were essentially paying for food for a few days for us. So it was awesome. And what was interesting, though, because Indiana has a lot of descendants of German immigrants, and one of my roommates / besties was one of them on her mother's side. And she was always raised to clean her plate, which is very hard to do with American portion sizes. When my husband first came to the States, he tried that as well. And I told him many times, don't clean your plate. Don't. You will feel sick. It's if you're not used to eating that much food. I wasn't using. Don't. But now that I lived in Germany, I learned very quickly that while the portion sizes are, of course, smaller than the States, they're bigger than that half portion I would have eaten. So I ended up having to eat more food since living in Germany. First world problems. Number 5, food combinations. Sweet potato and marshmallows, ice cream and soda, bacon and syrup. Hell, peanut butter and maple syrup is the best combination. I said what I said. And it's weird. Yes, I know. Americans, we are adventurous when it comes to our food. So all I have to say is don't knock it until you've tried it. Number 6, tipping culture. The idea that the customer has to essentially pay their server's salary through tipping because a restaurant only pays their employees like $2 an hour. Granted, there are some servers that can make more money through tipping, like they really make bank. But I always think about one of my roommates working for a pizza joint. This is right out of college, right after the recession. She worked a full shift and only made $6 in tips. She was on food stamps. So I will say, especially nowadays in the States, with this great resignation happening, a lot of people are just not accepting the system anymore. I can actually kind of see tipping culture in the States eventually disappearing, hopefully even within my lifetime, and I'm really hoping it does. Number 7. Sales tax. This is another one of my husband's pet peeves. You'll go to a store, you want a piece of candy, and that's like 49 cents. So you go up to the cashier with your 50 cents and you think it's enough, but it's not. Because you only find out the sales tax when you pay. Why is it not on the price tag to begin with? And I know the argument in the States is because, every state has a different tax rate, so this just makes it easier, blah, blah, blah. The argument is weak because Europe does the same thing. And Europe makes it work. Okay, guys? And not only do they have different tax rates, but they also have, different languages. And in some places, different currencies. So, I know Americans may not see the problem, because they don't know the difference. I didn't think about it until I moved out either. You're just used to it. You don't know the difference. But at the same time, once you've experienced going to the store and paying for an item that's exactly on the price tag, then you begin to question. Number 8, air conditioning. Oh yeah, I have definitely covered this in previous videos. German summers rarely get hot enough to really need air conditioning. So Germans they don't really see the need for the most part, and that's totally fine. I've survived this long without having air conditioning in our home. And I was only making a big deal now because I'm pregnant. But when you compare that to Indiana, for health reasons, you do need air conditioning in Indiana. The summers are just too hot. However, it is also a big topic of conversation among Americans, especially from women who do complain about air conditioning being too high, especially in the workplace. And that is usually because men in certain work environments are expected to wear full suits year round, so the AC is set to their comfort. While women who wear summer dresses, you sometimes need space heaters at their desks during the summer to counter the high AC. So in short, quite a few Americans agree that it is too much. I don't have the stats, but this is just anecdotal. Number 9, the measurement system. Yeah, I know the US gets made fun of for still using the Imperial system, even though we got it from the UK when we were their colony, and they technically also still use it. Officially, they use metric, but if you've ever driven in the UK or Ireland, I have, you will see the distances are still measured in miles. Now, if you are trained in the sciences in the US, like myself, we are trained in metric as well. So, I mean, there are plenty of us that use it. Personally, I don't know why the US couldn't have gone the route of the UK, so like adopting metric officially, but then keeping Imperial for like already established things, but you know, here we are. Number 10, the drinking age. This is also a head scratcher, but it's also on par with the US's puritanical history and mindset. I mean, you can buy cigarettes, you can vote for your representatives, you can kill or be killed for your country at 18, but yet alcohol's a no-go. The drinking age used to be 18 in a lot of states, but that got changed in 1984. I did a video on it a while back. I'd have to remember which one it was. I'll try to link it somewhere. And I think more than just the legal age limit, the big issue in the States is actually more about their relationship with alcohol as opposed to the laws themselves. I had already mentioned earlier, I went to a party school for university. And when I lived on campus, I had heard the ambulance almost every single night because some idiot likely got alcohol poisoning and had to be rushed to the hospital. And this is just my personal opinion because I live in Germany and I grew up with a Peruvian mother. These two cultures have a different relationship with alcohol compared to the US. And with lower drinking ages. And you don't necessarily see the level of craziness that you would see in the States. And last, number 11 is not taking vacation days. So this is a lot more complex than you think. Part of it, I think it does go back to our history. Most immigrants came to the States and worked, and it was very simple. You work, you get paid, no work, no paycheck. Black and white. Granted, the US has developed since and is quite rich, but we still kept this mindset because we put our value into how much work we put in. But the younger generations, you started seeing it with millennials because the older generations are complaining about how we are ruining everything, but also Gen Z. They're noticing how much they are being taken advantage of by the system and also through the internet, learning how other countries function. And we're starting to fight for change. On the other hand, like I said, the older generations are calling us entitled for it, but I don't think it's entitled to enjoy the same benefits of other countries that are equally as successful as the States, but whatever. I remember like in my first job, back in the States, I had taken 3 weeks off to do a solo trip to the UK and Ireland, and this was back in 2011. And I remember telling some of my coworkers, and one of them actually said to me, I can't imagine taking so much time off for work. But it's not surprising to hear that from people who don't really travel much. On the other hand, I did also have coworkers from Nigeria and Thailand, and you can bet your bottom dollar they also took several weeks off when it was needed. Also, there are a lot of Americans who would absolutely love to take more time off, but U.S. work culture goes out of its way to make you feel so horrendously guilty for even thinking about taking time off. Like a lot of my friends, for example, they'll want to take time off, but then they think about the mountain of work that will wait for them when they get back. So then they decide against it because in the end, yeah, you get to have your break. And then it gets canceled out by all the work that is waiting for them when they get back. So you see, from a US audience, in countries in Europe, where it is quite normal to take several weeks off at a time, Before you leave, you usually have a go-to person who will then be in charge of taking on some of your load while you're gone. And so this is, of course, somebody in your department, or if you're a manager, it'll be one of your senior employees who will step up. They will receive your emails while you're gone. They can take over where they can, so like basic stuff. If there's a specific project, that will just have to wait, but most things can be taken care of by another employee. And the US hasn't figured out how to divvy up the work like that. Or maybe some companies know, I don't know, or maybe they do know. Or maybe some companies know that they can do that and just choose not to in order to manipulate their employees from taking any time off. But what I have noticed between US workforce and But what I've noticed between US workforce and German workforce is I have noticed that US employers only employ the bare minimum for their departments, to the point that if one person is missing, their very fragile work environment pretty much just comes crumbling down. In Germany, I noticed they will hire maybe one or two extra, because it's obvious that like not everyone's going to be at the office at the same time because of all, the long vacations. So things do get shuffled around. But for the most part, they do manage to keep a good balance. I think it works out quite well. Anyway, that's a lot. That's a lot in a month. What about you? What do you think? What other US things do you find weird? Let me know in the comments below. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. It lets me and YouTube know that you like this kind of content and you want to see more. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions, or if there's a certain topic you'd like to see on this channel. If you want more info on my books and newsletter, check them out in the description below. And don't forget to connect with me on social media, whether it is through TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And that's it. Until next time, ade!